Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Tom Ulbrich, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from New York. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership generally, but specifically the intersection between for-profit and nonprofit leadership within organizations and what that can look like and what that transition has looked like throughout your career and how you're dealing with that currently in your current situation. As we get started, I wanted to share Tom's bio with everybody. Tom Ulbrich is an entrepreneur, educator, speaker, author, and social sector CEO at Goodwill of Western New York, a member of the Forbes Nonprofit Council, and executive in residence for entrepreneurship at the University at Buffalo School of Management. He is an entrepreneurial leader with a broad-based management experience in both the for-profit and nonprofit sectors. His passion for social innovation is focused on nurturing strong relationships and building consensus across diverse groups of stakeholders in academic, for-profit, nonprofit, and government sectors. I really love everything about that. I do a lot of work in the social impact and social entrepreneurship space myself, and so I just love it anytime I have a chance to have these types of conversations because I think we need more cross-pollination in this area. So pleasure to sit down with you. Anything that you would like to add by way of your own background or personal context before we dive on into the conversation?
No, nothing really to add. Maybe I would just say that I spend a lot of my time as a grandfather of 6 grandkids. So super excited to share that. But let's dig into the conversation.
Oh, congratulations. That is beautiful.
Thanks. That's like my most important job right now.
Wonderful. I'm not quite to that stage yet, though I'm getting there. And I figure my wife and I talk about it. We're like, probably sometime in the next 5 years or so, we'll probably welcome our first grandchild is my best guess. Yeah, we're kind of excited for that stage in our life. So it'll be fun when that happens. So, anyways, congratulations to you, and
Yes, thank you.
that's awesome. Well, why don't we start off with just a little bit of more of a background about your career transition as you kind of went from entrepreneur to nonprofit CEO. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. It's a bit of a eclectic and long journey, but I'll try to share it quickly with you. So previously I had been a small business owner and an entrepreneur. So it started my work in a family business for many years, started a company of my own that I spun off into e-commerce business. I was very, very interested in supporting small business owners and ran for public office because they've been doing a lot of advocacy for small business issues. And from there, I sought election. Didn't do too great, but it was a great experience. And from there, it led me to the University of Buffalo. They've been talking about a lot of small business needs and issues. Back to my alma mater and at the University of Buffalo School of Management to run their Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, which was a part of the university that worked with small business owners, helping them to grow their businesses, build their leadership teams. So that's how I ended in the university center. Through all this, I still kept my businesses and had businesses up until 2019. But at the University of Buffalo, my work then led into I did a lot more teaching and entrepreneurship. And I think that the transition for me came here. I was assistant dean and also taught at the School of Management, but started working with a dean in the School of Social Work, Nancy Smith, who was very, very forward thinking and understood that the social sector needed to think more entrepreneurial. That's where that work started with actually my love for it. And she really inspired that work. I went on to become assistant dean at both the School of Social Work and Management and was working on that cross-pollinated social sector work. So that led me to social innovation. a lot of the work was at what we're going to talk about is this intersection of the for-profit and nonprofit sectors. Long story short, that eventually led me to Goodwill. I had really, honestly, back in 2019, was recruited and didn't really have any intention of coming here, but over time got worn down with the challenge of you talk about this all the time. Why don't you come out in the real world and do this? So we have
Uh-huh.
an
Yeah.
organization that does that. And I think the entrepreneur got excited about, okay, you challenged me. So here I come. And that's how I ended up at Goodwill. Kind of a long story, but important to see how all those pieces kind of fit together.
Yeah, well, I love that. I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, we definitely need more entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial spirit in the nonprofit space, in the social sector space. There's not a lack of big hearts and good purpose,
True.
right? And good intention, right? Like that's what the space is all about. So you have plenty of that. You have lots of great people with good intentions, often people who want to donate and have money, so you have the philanthropic piece, but that isn't enough. Like, good intentions and purpose and even money isn't enough, right, to make sustainable impact and to actually make a dent in the big hairy problems that face the world and society and communities. Right. And so that's where, that entrepreneurial mindset and systems thinking and design thinking and like these different approaches that entrepreneurs have to deal with all the time, just to user experience design and like all these things that like just go into having good products and services,
Mhm.
that actually translate into having a good social enterprise, having a good nonprofit, that can actually be sustainable and make the impact that you want to have. That goes a long, long way.
Yeah, and
And so, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say sorry to stomp on you there. Yeah, let's. You're absolutely right. And today the world is even more competitive. We're in this rapidly changing, exponentially changing technological world. There's a lot of pressure on nonprofits. Traditional funding is drying up. And what I learned when I was talking about working with Nancy Smith was we really spoke the same language. At first, I had come from the business school and I wasn't thinking about entrepreneurship and social work, like social sector, how that connection is, but you nailed it. A lot of what being an entrepreneur is being a good nonprofit leader. You talked about systems thinking and problem solving and customer discovery in a sense. Those are skills of the entrepreneur. And I think another thing that I really aligns well in the nonprofit sector that you bring in from the entrepreneur is an iterative way of thinking. So there often nonprofits get stuck. We've always done it this way, and they go down this hard path of we're just going to continue down. But everything's changing. I think that ability to iterate, to gain feedback, take a couple steps forward, one step back is really critical. And that's something that, entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship does well, as well as fundraising, talent development, all those pieces fit together. So I kind of chuckle, but we were talking the exact same language. The dean of the School of Social Work and an assistant dean and professor over in the School of Management. And that's where my passion really got, as I said earlier, got fired up is exactly what you said. The two fit together. Much of them are the same, really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so, before I went on for I'm a professor and, do things like this podcast on the side. But before I went on and did my PhD, I got a master's in public administration, and that was like one of the very first things, that I remember my professors, tried to hit home to us, as many of us would be going into, some into government, but many would be going into the nonprofit space. And they really wanted to double down on this point, that they need the whole nonprofit sector just needs more competent, business minded people, like people with the skill sets that will help them to be successful. The skills that we were getting in our master's program, right? um, and not because the intentions were lacking, not because the purpose and the meaning and all those other things that exist in spades in the sector, those weren't lacking. It's just you have all these super well intentioned people that get in, and then they just don't know how to do it, and so that I think is a message that can't be repeated enough because I see it happen again and again and again and again. And I don't know how it is out there in New York. I suspect it's similar, but like here in Utah, I haven't looked recently, but for years and years and years, Utah has been the highest nonprofit per capita state in the country. And so lots of well-intentioned people, lots of charitable giving, lots of nonprofits, lots of people setting up nonprofits, and that's amazing. Like that's awesome. Like good for people, right? But on the other hand, that's kind of crummy, like that because there's so much replication. There's so much. There's instead of people like reinforcing the effort to make a sustainable approach towards solving actual problems, you have all this dilution of effort and replication and just inefficiencies and all of these things, and it just ends up creating an ecosystem, a nonprofit ecosystem that isn't effective, right? And so ultimately we can do better, and as you said, all of these various entrepreneurial kind of skill sets and mindsets, business acumen, competencies are going to help leaders in the nonprofit space to be very, very effective. And so I love everything about that. One of the things that I think is really interesting is as I was looking over some of your materials and preparing for the interview today, is just like this idea of transformation and catalyzing transformation at this intersection of social impact and business best practice.
Yeah.
Tell us more what you mean about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, my interest here and what I see, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on it because you're in a similar space. I see this convergence happening that may be leading us to a future where the line is a bit more blurred between a
Mm,
for-profit and a
yeah,
nonprofit. I'm thinking 50, 75, maybe 100 years from now, social entrepreneurship may be more the norm of business because nonprofits are being forced to be more entrepreneurial and think about generating
yeah,
revenue as grant strata, but for-profits are being pushed by society to look at success beyond just profit, right? So
right.
sustainability, the triple bottom line. And I'm not going to say we don't still teach students that your job as a CEO is to maximize shareholder value, but we're measuring shareholder value, I think, differently, and society is, pushing it's a morphing thing. So that's my interest there, and I really think that this is happening more and more on both sides. So you'll see my writing, a lot of stuff I do, I still have a foot in both sides, and I'm trying to bridge the gap between the two with some what I would call transformational leadership. So again, how can the for-profit use some of the best of a nonprofit world where where we're focused on not just that purely bottom line, but to your point, what you just described, how do we not cannibalize each other in the nonprofit world by having so many people maybe doing the same thing, replicating CEOs and CFOs and boards and expenses. So I think there's great opportunity here. And I just kind of finish up by saying it's really, if we could get people to see it, to me, it's this concept of you can do good work while you do well, meaning you can do good work in the for-profit and the social sector, purposeful work that has great meaning, but you can also do well financially. An
Right.
organization can do well financially and sustain itself. It kind of bothers me a little bit. It's getting better, but there was sort of this martyr mentality if you're going to go in nonprofit sector that you
Yeah.
must suffer. You can't be paid well. And we're seeing a shift there, but we've got to continue to move towards this triple bottom line for both sectors, in my opinion. And I may be talking about economics that when it comes to the for-profit sector, that people will say you're insane, but I'm just watching society push us this way. Especially the younger generations, demanding the change in the for-profit sector.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's kind of this merging to the middle. And you're absolutely right. Younger millennial and Gen Z are kind of insisting on this move towards stakeholder capitalism, triple bottom line. And obviously there's like this movement towards B Corp and other efforts like that, right? And ESGs and such. And obviously there's the political pendulum kind of swings back and forth, and it can be a little bit turbulent, but I would say generally speaking across the world, we're moving more towards more social responsibility around business, right? Certainly more than we were at 50 years ago or 100 years ago, for sure. And certainly younger generations are expecting more out of us and more out of business. And and so, yeah, I see this merging more in the middle, more of the blurring of the lines between like a for-profit and a nonprofit. And it doesn't need to be an either or. Like you can have, in fact, you need to have like a sustainable, profitable nonprofit in order for it to meet its purpose and mission, right? Like if you have a nonprofit that can't actually keep its doors open, then how is it actually serving anybody, right? You have to, I mean, and obviously it has a range of ways to bring in revenue. It can bring in donations, it can bring in grants, it can bring in other more traditional forms of revenue like a for-profit business would. And so it can diversify its approach, but it has to be able to do that, and it has to be able to do that sustainably. Otherwise, it's not going to keep its doors open, just like a for-profit
Yeah.
business needs to. For-profit businesses can't exploit customers, environment, employees. People aren't going to put up with that, and so we have to find a way to just have a better model. I'm blanking on the name of the author, but the author of the book that came out, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, Donut Economics, is another really great example of a different mindset of how we can approach this. The bottom line is we don't have to feel like we're stuck in kind of the quote unquote traditional models of thinking about these, kind of the dichotomous approach towards, how this kind of system of this economic system functioned. And we can create the system that we want, and we can create an effective and responsible and sustainable system that benefits people, that benefits everybody. And I believe that, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about too. And I think that's slowly what we're
Yeah.
evolving towards, as we kind of meet towards the middle. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve over time. And of course, as I mentioned, there's political pendulum swings, and there's back and forths, and two steps forward, one step back, and all of that happens. And so sometimes it feels like you're gaining momentum and then losing momentum and whatever. But I would say if you take the long arc of history and you look at like how things are today versus how they were 50 years ago or 100 years ago, we're light years ahead,
Oh yeah.
today of like where things were 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And I suspect 50 years from now we're going to be so far ahead, then of where we are now. So there definitely continues to be progress. I think we definitely continue to move forward in a direction that ultimately is better for consumers, for workers, for the environment. So that triple bottom line that you're talking about ultimately is benefiting. We just need to continue to make those efforts.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, as I'm listening to you, I was just thinking about for-profit, nonprofit sectors, and not for-profits. That if your product isn't attractive to customer, there's a mechanism that is going to
Yeah,
end your company. That doesn't
yeah,
tend to be as true in the nonprofit world, because often there's a series of donors or grants that will sometimes prop up something a little bit longer than it should, because there's some passion. So as I think about the future of this social sector intersection, I agree with you. I think sometimes if we look, we have lots of small nonprofits, and that's great. I'm not critical of that, but I think what we need are bigger visions for solving these huge, challenging problems that we have in our world today. And I think a lot about what we should be thinking about is creating movements. And by a movement, I mean, something that happens when people join it because they have a sense of belonging. And they have this profound sense of mission that they want to support, but they also build the business around it to make it sustainable. So I think about, we build a movement when we belong, but sometimes in our sector, we get it backwards. We ask people to belong before they believe in what we're doing, before they're, behaving within the parameters of what we're trying to build. Before, we often don't do all that work before we start with belonging instead of backwards. So I think that's the future of the sustainability of the nonprofit sector, is getting these big movements that people can get behind, and we can build the infrastructure around to make them successful in the longer term.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a really astute observation, and yeah, I think there's so much good happening now. There's so much more we need to do and more that needs to be done. Tom, this has been such a great conversation. I know we've only really scratched the surface here. I also know at the time I'm probably going to need to let you go here in a few minutes. As we start to wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word for today.
Yeah, well, thank you again very much, John, for having me on and sharing a little bit. If you're interested in this work, I think some really good examples I talk about and share a lot are of Goodwill of Western New York, which I'm president and CEO of, and you can find us at goodwillwny.org. We also do a lot of research to back the work that we're doing. So we publish about every 4 months, we publish a research paper on the work we're doing in our community, the mission work, in workforce development that people certainly may be interested in. And then if you ever want to chat, or if you want to find out more about my thinking, you can find me on LinkedIn under Thomas Ulbrich. And again, thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. Again, it's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Tom can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.